Welcome into this Easter Sunday edition of Sabres Take Two. I'm Jonathan Acosta, joined here by our WGRZ Sabres insider, Paul Hamilton. Paul, happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Just jump right into this Sabres, I guess, final stretch of the season coming up. Dating back to that West Coast road trip and now the start of this homestand. It hasn't been what the team wanted. There's now 7 points out with 7 games to go, all but mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Just what have you seen in this recent stretch? Because it looked for a little bit like the team might go on a little bit of a run. They had a 12-game stretch where I think they won 8 games out of those 12 games. But I don't know if it's running out of steam, but they haven't been able to keep up the level of play at which they were playing that was giving people a little bit of hope.
Well, here's the problem. From January 1st on until they went on the road trip, they had played very, very well.
Yes.
And they got to themselves to within 3 points of a playoff spot. So now let's go on the road. Let's play the team you're chasing. You go in the first period, play a very good first period, leave the first period up 1-0 in Detroit. Mm-hmm. You're only 3 points behind them now. If you win, you're 2. Or I'm sorry, you're 1 point behind them. So then they play 2 awful periods. It's like they crumble. As soon as it becomes like maybe it's not, when you're 10 points out, 11 points out, there's not as much pressure. But now all of a sudden, here it is. We can pull to within a point.
Yes. And
they don't seem to be able to handle that type of pressure. They go 2-4 on the road trip. Every one of those games, they could have got points in. They were like within a goal in the third period or close to it, where you could maybe get that game to overtime and get points out of that. They didn't. Then they come home and have that 5-goal first period disaster against Ottawa.
Right.
Recover the next game against New Jersey after falling behind 2-0, but that was different. Those were 2 deflected goals. They weren't playing all that poorly. Mm-hmm. And they recovered. Tage Thompson looked like the Tage Thompson of old. And, you know, and I wonder to myself, how much is that broken hand? Is it hampering him still? I think it has to be.
Yeah.
You know, he got 4 goals there, but I think it's been hampering him for a while now. But anyway, you know, you win that game, but then you can't score on Toronto. I mean, yeah, it's 2-0 for most of the game, but you can't score on Toronto. You had numerous opportunities. You had some open nets. They missed the net 15 times against the Maple Leafs. 15. They hit a post. It's just like, it's there for the taking. But there's been too many games like that. There's been too many games like Ottawa and Columbus, and they lost to New Jersey 7-2, where they gave up 4 goals in the first period. There have been too many games like that really have derailed their season. And it just seems like as soon as they get close and the games get important, they freeze and they aren't able to handle it.
And you kind of touched on it. Some of these periods have just been total collapses. The 5-goal first period against Ottawa, we didn't mention the Edmonton game. It was 3-3, and they gave up all those goals in the third period against Edmonton.
It was 3-2 with, what, 2 minutes left to go in the second period.
Yes.
Now, they gave up a power play goal, but they left the period 3-3.
Right, and it's something to where the team has talked about, where they're not saying they're giving up, but they say in the form of, oh, we have to play better for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who's been the star for this team. He's kept them in so many games, and they just sort of stopped playing for him. Because at this point, the season's almost over. The team is who they are. Why has that been a characteristic of this team, that they just have these periods where just everything goes south and they can't stop the bleeding?
They don't normally stop playing like they did in Edmonton in that last 5 minutes where they just hung Luukkonen totally out to dry. A couple of instances I've seen that. They just seem to crumble, and once it gets going, it just goes out of control. It flows out of control. I don't think this is a mentally tough team. I think Don Granato is facing an uphill battle, because it's not like he doesn't point out mistakes. He doesn't tell them, all right, this is how I want you to play. And then sometimes they do play that way. But then they revert. Mm-hmm. They revert back to old. Now you got to tell them again. So is the system too hard to learn? Or are the players, can't they figure it out? Do they not have good hockey sense where they can't figure out what their coach wants them to do? But whatever it is, it's not gelling. It's not working. And I don't for 1 minute think that they don't respect Don Granato or they dislike Don Granato. It was true emotion after that Columbus game where the fans were chanting they want him fired. They were emotional and they were mad. They don't want their coach fired. but the way they play, if their coach gets fired, they have nobody to blame but themselves with the way they've reacted to different types of situations.
And we're going to get more into some of these Sabres issues in a sec, but before we continue, I do want to touch on this. We're recording this after the last game they played was that 3-0 loss to Toronto. And it was sort of a surreal scene, especially when Austin Matthews scores his 60th goal, and it's the loudest cheer of the whole game, and it's from a majority Leafs crowd. Huge cheer. ESPN Plus immediately cuts away to the fans giving him a standing ovation. You see balloons with the number 60. You hear MVP chants in KeyBank Center for an opposing star. How surreal was that scene, and how does that maybe speak to the dynamic right now with the fans and this team at the moment? Early
in the first period, I was trying to look for a Sabre jersey. It took me over 40 seconds to find one in their building. It used to be, it's always been a rivalry in Buffalo, not necessarily in Toronto, but Buffalo, it's always been a rivalry. It used to be maybe 30%, 20% Leaf fans that would get in. Now it's 75 to 80%. It's basically a whole arena full of Leaf fans. It's embarrassing. It should be embarrassing to the organization. This has nothing to do with booing. This has nothing to do with chanting of Don Granato being fired. This is simply that fans have no reason to keep their tickets. They can make a lot of money by selling their tickets. This team, for years, has not given them any reason to want to keep their tickets and come and cheer their team on against the Toronto Maple Leafs. None. And that is something that this organization has to figure out, because it happens when Toronto's here, it happens when Montreal's here, Boston, to a lesser extent Detroit and Chicago and Vancouver. It happens way too much where the visiting fans take over this arena because the Buffalo fans have been given nothing in the last 13 years to make them want to come to the game. But not to the extent that we saw with that game last night, right? I think that's something we were talking about where you're like, that it stood out the amount of Leafs fans that are in that building. And it's something that even the players noticed. Dylan Cousins, Alex Tuck speaking after the game saying, hey, we're the ones that have to earn these fans back. And some of that goes to their play on the ice. Obviously, the Sabres 0 for 6 on the power play in that game against the Maple Leafs. So I guess it's two season-long issues, right, that the team fails to be consistent and give the fans a reason to come to the game. And then specifically with what they're doing in the game, they've been bad on the power play the whole year. They're bottom 5 in the power play for the season. You know what should be a huge embarrassment to Terry Pegula right now? Max Domi tweeted out, best crowd of the year. They weren't in Toronto. They weren't. It's like, great job, Leafs Nation, best crowd of the year. And it wasn't in Toronto. Terry Pegula should be absolutely embarrassed by that comment and what we witnessed last night. I don't believe he was in the building. I never know if he is. I don't think he was. I don't think he's there that often. Again, I don't know for sure. But I have not seen him up in the press box all year with Kevin Adams. If he's there, he's in a suite somewhere. But that should be a complete and utter embarrassment to Terry Pegula. How do they get that issue to change? Well, first of all, you got to start getting a team in here that the fans want to come see. You got to make the fans not want to sell their tickets, you know, and say, you know, this is a big game. This is a game that could change the season for us. We want to come and root on the Buffalo Sabres. It wasn't that way when Ryan Miller and Daniel Briere and Chris Drury were here. It was the Toronto fans were there, but they weren't there 80% of the building, maybe 20% of the building or 10% of the building. Yeah, it was there back when they went to the Stanley Cup Finals with Petka and Dominic Hasek and all them, but not like that. People wanted to come because the Sabres were the better team. I mean, they played the Leafs in the conference finals when they went to the Stanley Cup Finals, in the Eastern Conference Finals. I wish you could have been here. It was awesome. You know, and the series started in Toronto. Buffalo wins the first game with their star goalie hurt, and it was crazy. That's the way it should be, that the fans want to be here because they've been given a reason to want to be at the arena. Let's touch on one bright spot, even if it's just for a sec, with this Sabres team. I think
you certainly have to say that Devon Levi was a bright spot for this team in that 5-2 win over the Devils. I know Tage Thompson got a lot of the praise with his 4 goals in that game. Devon Levi was outstanding in keeping that game close for a long time. 28 saves on 30 shots. It really seems like he's gained a lot of confidence with that time in Rochester. Just what have you seen out of his play in a couple of the games that he's played for the Sabres since being called up?
Every time he's gone down, he's come back a better goalie. He's played 3 games now since coming back. All 3 were good. He has a goals against a well under 2, a save percentage that's around 930, 940, somewhere in there since he's been back. But he was playing important games every night. The Amerks were struggling to get into the playoffs. In their division, each division's different. 7 teams, 5 get in. They were right on the cusp of not getting in. By the time Levi came up here, they were pretty well entrenched in 3rd place, where it was going to take a lot for them not to make the playoffs because he played so well and he helped the team. The team got confidence from the way he played, and the team played better. So they started winning some hockey games and solidifying their playoff position. And he always looks at it that it's not a demotion. It's an opportunity to play a lot of games, because Luukkonen was going to play the games here. He had earned it. You know, so he had an opportunity to play a lot of games that were important games. And he really took it to heart and became a better goaltender by doing it.
2 of the young forwards on this team, let's talk about them for a sec. Jack Quinn, a few games back now since the lower body injury, and J.J. Petka, a few games on that top line. That top line looks like it's been clicking for the most part for the Sabres with Tuck, Thompson, and Petka. Just what have you seen out of those 2 forwards, Quinn and Petka, here recently?
When we talked early in the season, might have even been in the summer before the season started, it's like, all right, Dylan Cousins was the guy who kind of he established himself last year. Who's the guy this year? I probably would have said Jack Quinn if he wasn't injured, but I said J.J. Petka because Quinn was injured. I think Jack Quinn I think both of them could be consistent 30-goal scorers in the National Hockey League. Unfortunately, Quinn has not been able to play all that many games, I think 19 maybe, that he's played. So he hasn't gotten that opportunity, but Petka has taken advantage of his opportunities. And think of all the opportunities he's missed. He, by far, has the most posts.
He had one against Toronto.
This year. He rings the post constantly.
Yes.
But he also cashes in on a lot of goals too, as he is tied now with Tage Thompson for the team leading goals, has an opportunity to make it to 30 goals. So, you know, here are 2 guys on the horizon that can be 30-goal scorers for you. Petka is one of the few guys that hasn't regressed this year. He has progressed.
And that brings me to my next topic, because you could say 2 of the major issues for this team this year has been the power play and the regression of some of their top guys. It's a topic I know you touched on with Lindsay last week, but other than Thompson and Tuck, Jeff Skinner, he has not had the season that I know he's up there in terms of the team rankings, in terms of goals scored, but I think that's certainly a player that you would have liked to see more out of this season. Just overall, how impactful has the down year for these top guys been for the Sabres' overall record and where they stand in the standings?
Jeff Skinner last year really upped his assist total. I thought by far had his best season as a Sabre. That has gone away to a point where Granato just had to take him off the top line. He was killing him. And now he's played in other places, and he's trying to maybe reestablish himself with that. So, and Dylan Cousins against the Leafs after the game, he only has 15 goals. He missed some golden opportunities there in the 3rd period that could have changed that game.
There's a breakaway, and then
shorthanded.
Yes, yeah, and then Skinner has the opportunity, and then Cousins again, and then Samsonov makes a great save.
It was right after. Skinner came out of the penalty box. He went in. Cousins did what he's supposed to do, follow it up, go to the net. Had a golden opportunity there. And I asked him, and he just said, because I said, look, you know you can do it. You scored 31 goals last year. What are you thinking now that those opportunities are just, and he's to a point now, he basically said, I have a lot of work to do this summer. He said, because I know I can score on those opportunities. I've done it before, and I haven't been doing it. And he basically has gotten to the point where I really need to work on a few things this summer to get back to where I was.
And it's notable, the summer portion of that comment is notable because it lends credence almost to the fact that this team almost realizes now the playoffs are out of sight. Like they know it. They're almost looking forward to it.
I think that was part of the Edmonton thing, because the Red Wings were playing. Buffalo was tied. Edmonton got 2 quick goals early in the period, and around the 15-minute mark, look up at the scoreboard, Detroit won. And I think they just gave up for those 5 minutes. And I don't say that lightly for professional athletes, but they just basically stood there. It looked like the Harlem Globetrotters on ice. I think any one of the 5 Oilers could have scored those goals. They could pick who they wanted to score. That's how bad it was. And I think that was part of it, though. I think maybe reality set in for those last 5 minutes.
So it's easy to stay motivated when you know you're in a playoff push. But now with 7 games left and the team basically knowing they won't be making the playoffs, what do you want to see out of this Sabres team to salvage some sort of good note to end the season? Or is there even a way to say that they can end the season on a good note with missing the playoffs?
Well, when you're not in it anymore, I still think as a professional athlete, I still need to see the compete. For the most part, we have seen it in the second half of the season. We've just mentioned a couple of examples where we haven't. But before January 1st, there were too many nights and too many periods where we didn't see compete. And then Don Granato would come to the microphone, we didn't compete hard enough. The players in the locker room, we didn't compete hard enough. Kevin Adams, when he would speak, we haven't competed hard enough at times. That can't happen. And those players need to show Kevin Adams, look at, maybe we're not in the race anymore, but we're going to come in here, we're going to compete, and we're going to take it all the way to the end. And I think that's the biggest thing they need to show Kevin Adams, because he has a lot of work to do in the off season. And, you know, he has moves to make. I think there should be openings on this team. And if you want to play on this team, you need to show them.
And that brings me to my final question. Kevin Adams, before the season, basically said that this team should not be afraid to talk about its goals and that the goal was to make the playoffs. They're going to fall short of that goal. They didn't make the playoffs last year, but this year they were specific. They were verbal about it before the season that they wanted to make the playoffs. That's not going to happen. Do you sense that there needs to be major changes on this team for next season?
Yeah, I've been saying all along, I said it last summer, that this team is flawed. They are not hard enough to play against. They need more Jordan Greenways. You know, a couple more guys like that are difficult to play against, that get in on the forecheck and cause turnovers and go to the net and help the skill players be the skill players. You know, a lot of turnovers that Jordan Greenway has produced have turned into great opportunities for the other guys on the ice, because, you know, now they get the puck in open areas, and, you know, they need more guys like that.
Coaching changes?
Coaching
whether
change,
big or small?
I'm to a point now where it's just not working. It's not. I don't think Kevin Adams, I think Kevin Adams had a bad offseason. I think he still deserves a chance to fix it. He has already started by getting Bo Byram. That was a big acquisition, because for 2 years now, we've been talking about getting that defenseman. He's done that. So he got that already. But there's a lot more work to be done. And I do think he deserves a chance to fix what happened, because I liked what he did up to this past off season. I didn't like this past off season, but I think he deserves a chance. For whatever reason, a coach shouldn't have to tell players over and over and over and take them into the film room. You're doing this. Well, yeah, you were doing this in October, but now you're back doing it again. It's not clicking with the players. For whatever reason, it's taking way too long. And I know they like him, and I know they respect him. But again, if he's not here next year, they have nobody to blame but themselves.
Certainly going to be an interesting Sabres offseason. Before we get there, though, 7 games left in this season, 2 more on this homestand, and it continues against a team in the wild card race against the Washington Capitals. Paul, thank you very much for joining us.